Welcome back to Midnight Signal AI. Today is June 20th, 2026, and we've got a busy day. OpenAI is pushing harder on monetization, enterprise teams are getting sharper controls, and there's a headline about Grok that raises bigger questions than it answers.
Yeah, this one is really about the shape of the AI business now. We've got consumer ads, enterprise guardrails, developer goodwill, and some pretty serious optics around military use. Plenty to unpack, and a few stories that hint out where the market is headed next.
Let's start with the biggest OpenAI move. The Keyword.co is reporting that ChatGPT is extending its self-serve ad manager to the UK, while other outlets say OpenAI is also expanding its ads pilot into Korea and Japan, and adding new spend controls for enterprise customers.
That's the clearest signal of the week. OpenAI is no longer just shipping capability, it's building the commercial rails around capability. Ads in more markets say the consumer side is getting serious about revenue, and the enterprise controls tell you customers are asking for visibility before they spend too much.
Exactly. And the combination matters. A lot of companies do either growth or control. OpenAI seems to be doing both at once, widening distribution on one side, then giving enterprises more levers so the billing surprise doesn't become a problem.
And that's the part people should watch. Once a chatbot starts looking like an ad platform, the product decisions change. The enterprise side changes too, because cost controls are often the first step before more formal governance, usage limits, or budget enforcement.
Speaking of OpenAI, Quasar.io says the company is giving 6 months of ChatGPT Pro to open source maintainers. That's a different kind of move, but it fits the same pattern. OpenAI is trying to keep developers close while the broader product stack becomes more commercial.
That one is smart, honestly. If OpenAI can keep the people who actually shape tools, libraries, and workflows engaged, it buys more than goodwill. It buys influence. And in AI, influence often turns into default status later.
Now to the story with the heaviest implications. India Today says the Pentagon claimed Elon Musk's Grok AI helped fire over 2,000 missiles against Iran. We're not treating that as a technical benchmark. This is about a weaponization headline and the fact pattern around military AI use.
Even if the exact operational details stay murky, the signaling is huge. Once an AI brand gets linked to active weapons use, the conversation stops being about clever demos and starts being about accountability, oversight, and whether these systems can be trusted anywhere near critical decisions.
Switching back to the AI company race, Benzinga says Noam Shazir, the Gemini co-lead, has joined OpenAI, and Sam Altman called it something that's been 10 years in the making.
This is the old Silicon Valley story, but on a frontier AI scale. A single senior move can matter because these teams are small, the stakes are huge, and the knowledge is so specialized. It also tells you the competition between OpenAI and Google still has a very human component.
On the research side, arXiv has a new paper called Uncertainty Decomposition for Clarification Seeking in LLM Agents. The core idea is simple. If an agent is unsure because the task is underspecified, it should be able to ask for clarification instead of bluffing its way through.
That feels important because it moves agent design away from fake confidence. In a lot of workflows, the best thing an AI can do is stop and ask the missing question. If this holds up, it could improve everything from shopping to support to enterprise automation.
Another arXiv paper worth watching is Benchmarking Agentic Review Systems. It looks at systems that review research papers, and it compares open source, proprietary, and zero-shot approaches across multiple language models.
This one is bigger than it sounds. Once peer review systems get benchmarked like software, the whole process starts looking more like an engineering stack. That could help with scale, but it also means the community will want transparency about what these systems are actually doing.
Next up, AgentFinVQA on arXiv, a deployable multi-agent pipeline for auditable financial chart question answering. The key twist is that it's built for regulated settings where institutions may not want to send their client data to an external model provider.
That's a very enterprise AI story in miniature. Prove the model works, prove you can inspect it, then prove you can keep the data inside the walls. In regulated industries, that trio matters as much as raw benchmark score.
And one more research note. arXiv's Exposing the Unsaid introduces Tree Tracer, a visual analytics tool for hidden LLM bias. It uses stochastic path aggregation and contrastive inference to make lower probability behaviors visible instead of hiding them in a single output. Now let's shift gears to robotics. This is a really interesting move because grasping has always been one of those deceptively simple problems. Humans make it look effortless, but robots still struggle when the object is odd-shaped, partially hidden, or sitting in a messy real-world scene. The idea here is to learn from the biggest teacher available, people picking things up all day, every day. By collecting first-person examples with smart classes, researchers are trying to turn ordinary human behavior into training data for robot hands.
And that is so practical. Instead of asking a robot to invent every possible grip, you show it what works in the real world. That feels like a shortcut to better manipulation in homes, hospitals, and warehouses.
Exactly. And the bigger point is that this is how robotics gets out of the lab and into daily life, by learning from the same messy environments we do. Switching to the robotics world, there's also a more experimental idea on the table: playful agentic robot learning. The pitch is that robots may learn reusable skills better if they get a kind of self-directed play phase before the real assignment shows up. Instead of waiting for a manager to issue a task, the embodied agent explores, tries odd little challenges, observes what happens, and revises its own behavior. That matters because so much robot learning is still task by task and brittle. If a system can build up a library of skills during play, then downstream jobs could become easier to learn and easier to transfer. It's a little like letting a child tinker before a test, except here the tinkering is structured, logged, and meant to produce policies the robot can actually reuse.
I like that framing because it makes robots sound less like vending machines for motions and more like learners. The risk, of course, is whether that play stays productive instead of just expensive wandering.
Right, but if the method works, it could be a real step toward robots that become more capable before you even give them the mission. On the hardware side, Google stepping harder into custom AI chips is one of those moves that tells you the battle is widening. For years, NVIDIA has been the shorthand for AI compute because everybody needed its GPUs. But as the major cloud players keep scaling, they don't want to be fully dependent on someone else's silicon roadmap. So Google building a rival chip business is about more than bragging rights. It's about control over cost, supply, performance tuning, and ultimately the economics of running AI at scale. If you can optimize chips for your own models and services, that can mean better margins and more flexibility.
And it also raises the stakes for the whole market. If Google can show that a custom path works, the rest of the big platforms get even more incentive to design their own accelerators.
Exactly. It becomes a land grab for compute itself, not just who sells the most chips, but who owns the stack end to end. And to end on a lighter note, one of the more human stories of the day is the vibe around that India AI stage moment where Anthropic's Dario described the event as extremely disorganized. There's something weirdly comforting in the fact that even in the middle of all the grand language model strategy, the live event side of AI can still feel like every other conference on Earth: microphones, timing, chaos, and people trying to find the right door.
Honestly, that's the most relatable AI headline on the planet. You can build frontier models, but a conference can still turn into a game of musical chairs.
Exactly. A reminder that behind the hype, there are still humans, clipboards, and stage managers doing their best.
So, across today's stories, a few themes really stand out. OpenAI is tightening the loop between growth and governance, ads in more places, better spend controls, and perks to keep developers close. At the same time, the research side keeps pushing towards systems that know when to ask, when to explain, and when to show their work. And the Grok headline is a reminder that AI's biggest questions are no longer just about product quality. They're about power, accountability, and where these systems get used. That balance between scale and responsibility is probably going to define the next phase of the industry.
That's the signal for today. A lot of motion, a lot of pressure, and a lot of very different ways AI is being pulled into real-world systems. We'll keep tracking it. This has been your Midnight Signal. See you in 24 hours.